Welcome to the Unlocking the Club podcast, where we host honest and direct conversations about journeys of access, personal truth, and reclaiming space. We share our truth so that you can find the key to own your truth, honor your journey, and reclaim your space. Grab your keys, your wallet, your phone, and invite your friends to meet you at the club. Here's your host, Angela Taylor.
Hello, everyone. My name is Angela Taylor, and I am really excited to welcome you all here to the Unlocking the Club podcast, a show about reclaiming your space and living your truth. Because you know what? Life is simply too short to let the gatekeepers dictate how and where we show up. Through each of the upcoming episodes, I invite all of you into what I am hoping and confident will be a really powerful and cathartic space. A space where Black women reclaim their power by sharing their stories and unlocking their truth, and allies come to listen deeply. After a 20-year career in corporate America as an executive in sports and entertainment, as an executive coach and an entrepreneur, I have personally experienced what it is like trying to navigate the club. And I truly just wanted to unlock those stories in a way that will empower, validate, and connect. And if I'm being 100% honest here, I didn't realize it then, but I desperately was in need of access to conversations such as these early on in my journey, where I had everything I thought I was working for, but I didn't feel like I knew where I not only belonged, but where I was welcome. I just didn't share that desire with others. I internalized it instead and hoped that I would figure it out on my own. I literally kept certain things that were happening to me on my journey that I couldn't quite reconcile. I didn't know what they meant, but I didn't have the capacity to actually share that with others. It might have felt like a weakness, or it might have felt like I was the only one going through that particular experience. I held on to it, and I have no doubt that actually what added to the stress, added to the sense of overwhelm, and added to the sense of feeling excluded that I was having throughout the early stages of my career. But you know what? Recently, I have found myself censoring myself less in conversations with others. Oftentimes, I've been prioritizing their comfort instead of my truth. I'll say that again. I had been prioritizing their comfort instead of my truth. And this actually really came up for me in May of 2020. We all were living through COVID, and then the George Floyd situation happened. And I had a lot of people that reached out to me and were asking me to help them figure out how to navigate this. And I actually, in that moment, had to pause, put my foot down, and reclaim my own space and say I was processing it myself. And I had for years prioritized everybody else and their learning opportunities and their journey and their comfort and safety over my own. And that is actually where I started to shift a little bit. And the concept for this podcast, I think, really started to come into fruition. It took a while for me to get here, but I'm really excited about where we're headed with Unlocking the Club. On the Unlocking the Club podcast, you'll hear me have candid conversations with a vast array of voices: influencers, elite athletes, change makers, CEOs, leaders, politicians, and other unique voices. We'll inquire about the work that they're doing, and I think more importantly, the true essence of who they are and who they have been when navigating these spaces where we are just simply fighting to be valued. Unlocking the Club will be a space where my guests can share their full truth. They don't have to censor themselves here. And trust me, it is incredibly cathartic to do so. I know firsthand. As I speak to our guests, most often they'll be Black women, but we'll also invite Black men and other identities who we believe have a perspective that is valuable to our audience. When I speak to these guests, I hope to do a few different things. First is to focus on each individual story through the prism of the club that they have had to navigate. I'll also inquire not just about what they have accomplished, but how that journey truly felt. What was the somatic process? Where were spaces in which they felt like they were alone, or those spaces where they felt like they weren't quite sure what to do, or those spaces where they felt overwhelmed? How did they truly feel along the way? And then I finally will attempt to change the lens that we're looking through by focusing on the system or the club instead of the burden that we all feel as individuals about navigating that club, oftentimes pointing the finger back at us in thinking that we are less than capable versus the system actually doesn't want us to thrive in many ways. I also want to create a space where our listeners can see themselves in the stories that are being told. I want to facilitate conversations that unlock your power and your imagination so that you can discover or rediscover whatever is most important to you and you can reclaim your own space. My inspiration for this podcast was actually the time I spent with my beautiful mother over the last 7 years before she was called to heaven. I didn't realize it at the time, but looking back on it, there was a really beautiful synergy, a sense of reciprocity happening in those intimate discussions I was having with my mom. And similar to that feeling that you had growing up when you were listening in on the conversations that your mom was having with her friends or relatives, or when you were in a meeting and you overheard what some of the executives were talking about. Those are the things that I want to start to reveal. These are the conversations that I actually enjoy being a part of. And these are the conversations that I wish we had more often. So come for the candid discourse here on Unlocking the Club. Come for the insightful stories. And stay for the inspiration. Stay for the community. My hope is that each of you, our listeners and our guests, will leave with that feeling you get when you are truly seen and heard, when folks care about your truth, and when you don't have to hold back. We're sharing catharsis, we're sharing affirmation, and we're sharing inspiration on Unlocking the Club. Tune in for Unlocking the Club, starting soon with some amazing guests that I can't wait for you to hear from and to learn from and to witness their journey. And I can't wait to start this journey with you. Again, I'm your host for Unlocking the Club, Angela Taylor, and it is truly a privilege, and I look forward to being in conversation with the Unlocking the Club community as we move forward. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to Unlocking the Club. If this conversation resonated with you, subscribe to our podcast on iTunes or your favorite streaming platform so that you can experience every episode. And follow us on social media, where you'll hear about future guests, access special features, and connect with this amazing community. Head on over there and let us know how you are unlocking the club. Until next time, peace.